We are now at the quarterfinals of the FIDE World Cup 2025. On your screen is Arjun Erigaisi entering in to face off against Wei Yi. What a clash we have on our hands here between the Chinese number one and India number one. And well, many people have said effectively this could very well be the finals of the World Cup happening in the quarterfinals, because I believe whoever wins this will become a heavy favorite to take home the title. Both Arjun and Wei Yi very well matched against each other, have played many games, and in Norway chess they are both classical games ended in draws, and now they will face off against each other at this tournament, where there are two classical games followed by the tie breaks. Will this match go into the tie breaks? We do not know, but Arjun has the black pieces, and making the first move on the board, knight f3, is Gaurav Rakshit, the commissioner of Global Chess League, and the move that is made from Arjun's end is by Alok Kumar, who's Indian Police Services Director General of Police in Goa. And as you can see there, the World Cup is bringing a lot of positive emotions and vibes in the Indian chess fraternity, and this always happens when an event takes place in a country. The sport does grow there. Well, after the initial moves, the players are now ready. We are ready to rock and roll. A handshake there, and Arjun presses the clock. Wei Yi settles down. He's known to take his time in the opening, and he opens the game with pawn to e4. Arjun plays his pawn to e5, telling his opponent, I'm going to stay steady here. I'm not going for any crazy Sicilians or Perk defense, Knight to f3 played, attacking the pawn on e5, and Arjun brings his knight out to c6. Now we could very well have the Italian here or the Ruy Lopez. I think Wei Yi is an expert at both. He goes for the Ruy Lopez, that's also known as the Spanish opening, and Arjun plays his pawn to a6. He always likes to do that. And will Wei Yi take on c6? Exchange variation? Well, not really. He goes bishop a4. Now against Peter Lecco in this tournament, Arjun had played the move bishop to c5. But here he decides to just continue normally, knight to f6. This is the main line, and I think it makes sense. You need to be solid with the black pieces, attacking the pawn on e4, white castles. Now you can take the pawn on e4, which leads to the open variation of the Ruy Lopez here. And black plays bishop to e7. The closed variation, and white can just play rook to e1, defending the pawn on e4. Pawn to b5, attacking the bishop on a4. The bishop drops back to b3. And now Arjun has a choice between castles and d6. He plays d6, which is generally, people go through the castles move order, because in castles you have the option of the marshal, with d5. But once you play d6, you take away that option. c3. It's important for white to play this, because knight a5 was threatening to win this bishop, as the pawn on e5 was now defended. So Arjun castles as black. And now generally if you play d4 here, I can pin your knight with bishop g4. So h3 is played to stop that. And now there are many moves here, knight b8, knight a5, but Arjun goes for bishop e6, which has been played around 1,000 times, but in a position which has been reached like 100,000 times. 1,000 times is not much. d4 played by Wei Yi. This is the main move here, and Arjun simply takes the bishop on b3. And Wei can now take with the queen or the pawn. He takes with the queen. I think taking of the pawn perhaps is more critical, and after takes, I believe there is d5 or knight b4. These are the moves. I'm sure Arjun was well prepared. But after queen b3, he goes h6. And this is again a slightly offbeat move here. I guess Arjun wanted to stop bishop g5 ideas, because the more logical move here is queen d7, just connecting the rooks. But h6, very, very interesting. Wei now hits the queen side with a4. And possibilities now are knight a5, rook b8. But you can see how Arjun tactically saves the pawn on b5. He goes queen d7. And I guess knight d2 makes a lot of sense. Just to continue normally, because if you try to win this pawn, it leads into, oh, by the way, Wei is going for it. It leads into a variation which is kind of very drawish and equal. ab5 taken. Now the rook is hanging on a1, so you must trade. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook. And now, well, you could continue potentially with knight bd2, but if you say A, maybe you want to say B as well. Queen takes b5 is what Wei Yi does. He takes it. Look at the times on the clock. Arjun has 1:31. And now for the pawn, he gets this tactic in. Knight takes d4. If you take here, I'll take on f3 first. So he must take with the knight. ed. And while Arjun has right now lost a pawn, because after the trades, let's say queen takes d7, Arjun has even reached 1 hour 32 minutes. Queen takes d7, knight takes d7, and Wei is down to 1 hour. And now white takes back the pawn on d4. You are down a pawn. However, you will see that black has lot of compensation. The rook is swinging in, the b2 pawn is weak. He goes bishop f6, attacks the pawn on d4. If you play d5, my bishop opens up. So maybe you want to just defend it with bishop to e3. That seems most logical. And now, I guess there are many ways to play. Rook a2 is one. c5 is also possible to be played. Arjun goes rook b8. He's attacking the pawn on b2. And if you defend rook e2, he will go rook b4. And if rook d2 trying to defend everything, then now c5 takes and knight takes, and this should be equal. Instead, Wei Yi says, I don't go into all these defensive maneuvers. I just play knight to d2. And you have a weakness here on c7, and I'm going to attack it with rook c1. So he plays rook c1, and by the way, look at Arjun's time. He's still at 1:32. And now c7 is hanging, but Arjun once again, after just a minute of thinking, will find this move bishop d4. Yeah, there you see, he's played it. Bishop takes d4. Of course, the point is that if you take on d4, I'll take on d2. If you take on c7, I take on e3 and then take on d2. I mean, everything's just falling there. So bishop d4, we are going in for mass trades. Rook d2. Rook takes c7 now. Looks logical. Takes it. And now Arjun goes for a check, slightly just to discomfort the white king. And now takes on d4. He takes on d7. Black will take on e4. And white will take on d6. Oof, what a clean. Wei Yi also wants to give a check. He's like, okay, Arjun, you gave a check on d1, I'll also give a check on d8. King h7. And by the way, look at Arjun's time. He has 1 hour 33 minutes on the clock. In fact, he might end with 1 hour 34. King g1. Check. King h2. The repetitions are flowing in. Rook e2, king g1, and now rook e1 and king h2, and they agree to a draw. What a game. And Arjun Erigaisi has 5 minutes more on the clock than what he began with, and I would say a very, very successful game for him, because Wei Yi just couldn't press absolutely in this one. And of course, with the black pieces, such draws are more than welcome in such events. And Arjun will now have the white pieces in game 2 of the classical to press. Of course, if that one also ends in a draw, we'll go into a rapid and blitz tie break on day 3. But for now, I think Arjun can be happy with the work he and his team of seconds did. That move bishop e6 surprised Wei Yi and didn't give him any chance at an advantage.